Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com, your home for the very best fantasy basketball tools and articles on the internet. Go check them out, #basketball.com. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me after a very long All-Star break, a not so pleasant All-Star break for my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
Dude, you think that part of it was bad, man. I had the flu for like most of the time you were on vacation. And there was like a 5-day period where I think I got out of bed for like maybe 5 or 6 hours total.
That is brutal. That's going around. I had the flu actually a couple weeks ago, and I don't think it is possible via the internet to give you the flu, so I don't think I'm responsible for your flu. But the timing is very suspect.
Did you you know how people used to send that anthrax stuff? Now this is, if you're a young listener, you might not remember this. Like send it through the mail. Did you send me the flu through the mail?
So yeah, by the way, there's this whole period of time where someone was sending anthrax through the mail. And it was like really, really crazy. And then nobody ever figured out who did it. And then that was the end of it. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, well, and like everybody was worried, like no one wanted to open up the mail for like a good, like what was that, like a year? Like you were just like, I'm not opening any mail, man. Just don't send me anything.
Yeah, that was like almost like around the DC sniper days, way back in the early aughts. And that was actually nerve-wracking too, because you're like, where's the DC sniper? He could be anywhere. That guy was on the loose for like a better part of a month.
Yeah, man, that was a wild time in life.
Yeah, I guess we think like, today's world is pretty crazy, but I guess the world's always been crazy, Tyler.
Oh, we know that's been the case.
Yeah, it's we didn't start the fire. Billy Joel reference. Go look it up, kids. But speaking of, I guess, crazy times, the All-Star game. Tyler, what happened? Your streak is over. I've now been pronounced the king of the All-Star game. We did in the previous episode a draft of all the All-Stars in the game, and like clockwork, LaMarcus Aldridge, 2 points. That was the last pick in the draft by Tyler, and the correct last pick in the draft. But Tyler, it was very, very close. You were saying through the third quarter. I wasn't keeping track of the game live, but in the fourth quarter, my team broke away from yours pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I can't tell you exactly how much time was left. It was during a commercial break, and I was like, oh, well, I'll just kind of do some quick and dirty math and see how this is shaking out. Because just by like eyeballing it, I could tell it was pretty close. And it actually worked out at one point in the third quarter where we were like dead even. And I was like, that is the strangest thing. But
that's wild.
Yeah, going down the stretch, it seemed like your men got the best of my men. So here's what surprised me, okay? Middleton dropped 20 points, right?
So yeah, Middleton was my second to last pick, and I went with a dunks and threes strategy, and Middleton hit 6 threes in the game. He like came out of nowhere, hit 6 threes in 21 minutes. And that really sealed the game. It was 193 to 152. Actually, a fairly large blowout for being tied sometime in the third quarter.
Yeah, and so your strategy threw me off a little bit. And here's why. I actually had Middleton ranked over a solid group of people. But you kept picking all the guys that I didn't want to pick. So I had it Kyle Lowry, Dwayne Wade, Kyrie Irving, and then Chris Middleton. But I had all of those guys ahead of Ben Simmons, D'Angelo Russell, Vucevic, Dirk, and LaMarcus Aldridge. But you kept never picking anyone I was going to pick. So you ended up with Middleton, and that was probably the difference. You ended up winning by exactly the score of Chris Middleton and Dirk.
Yeah, and shout out to Dirk Nowitzki, who I got with my last pick before you picked LaMarcus. 9 points, came in, hit 3 threes from basically midcourt, and then walked off the court as the legend
Dude,
that he is.
And he flamed LeBron, which maybe made it even better yet.
That anyone who flames LeBron is a hero of mine, and Dirk will always be an all-time great in my eyes.
LeBron ran out to like midcourt to high five him, and Dirk, if you guys haven't seen it, Dirk just literally like pretended like he wasn't there.
Yeah, I actually think I thought they were kind of joking around prior to the where they're tweeting at each other. I think there might be still some bad blood from that championship. If you remember, Dirk was like sick during one of the games, and like LeBron and Wade were like making fun of him before the game, acting like they were sick. Like that was kind of messed up. Like LeBron and Wade are not like fucking cool people. They're not. All you kids who think LeBron is cool, he's not cool. He's been pretty much a kind of a punk in those early years where he was like dancing on the sidelines, and obviously the decision was full of nonsense. But there's some very suspicious injuries where he'd like leave the court and come back in those early LeBron years. He obviously matured and became a legend on his own, right? But there's a lot of shady shit in LeBron's past that I think the kids seem to have forgotten.
Well, and I mean the history between Wade and Dirk even went back further than that, and
yeah, there's that whole 89 free throws in 4 games that Dwayne Wade shot.
So I don't know if you saw this, but ESPN released that story about the referee, that Tim Donahue.
Yep.
I actually went back when I was reading that story. I actually went back and looked and saw if he ref that finals.
Did he?
He did not, but because I mean that's the big thing, right? Is Wade kept getting all these foul calls, almost like it was fixed.
Let's be honest. This was the David Stern era. Those games were fixed. A lot of games were fixed back in the David Stern era, but not for, I think, gambling reasons, but I think for the same reasons you see playoffs go 5-6 games even today. Is that the Dallas team was like the number 1 team in the league. Somehow the Wade Heat ended up as like a 4 seed getting into the finals, and they got smoked those first 2 games. And it was like, well, this is the NBA Finals. We make a lot of money on advertising. We can't have this go 4 games, which actually kind of makes that sweep, the Warriors sweeping LeBron, even more impressive, because the league was trying to get more than 4 games out of LeBron versus the Warriors in the finals.
So that was the craziest part of that thing, was the guy basically admitting there's certain games I can't fix, but if it's close, I can fix it no matter what.
Yeah. It is wild. There was some real shady shit going on back in those mid-90s, early aughts in the NBA. Actually, if you really want to, we're really harping on the kids today, but if you want to go on a real time warp, go look up the Patrick Ewing draft and tell me what is suspicious about a grown man slamming an envelope into the side. So this is what they used to just pick out of a ball. They just pick envelopes out of a ball.
That's how the lottery was back then. I mean, most kids don't know that, right? They just had a bunch of balls in a big basket looking thing, and you just cranked the little wheel and it spun around, right, in a circle, and then you just reached in there and grabbed a ball out, and that was the number, right? Like now you see all those fancy new lottery machines where no one touches it. That's what the lottery looked like in the whatever era. I mean, we're talking early 90s.
Yeah. So go back. I think that's still on YouTube. Go back and look up that Ewing draft.
Everybody. I know that 2 years ago it was on YouTube, because if you remember, I wrote that "Is the Lottery Fixed" article.
That's a good article. I do remember that article, Tyler. That was a great article, because I think you were kind of saying it could be fixed for literally any team.
Yeah. And I went through and did some kind of suspicious ones, like Rose staying home and going to the Bulls.
Don't worry about it. Not important. That wasn't fixed.
Right. LeBron staying home and going to the Cavs. Like how some of it seems a little bit too
convenient, right?
Yeah. We'll go with that word. Yeah.
Too convenient. Well, only one of those was legit, and that was Derrick Rose. But Tyler, like I said, I'm going to give myself some props. Shout out to me picking the best the number one player, number one, Giannis with 38 points. But shout out to you picking LaMarcus, who, like I said, only got 2 points in this game. You had a really AD being injured didn't help. Embiid only 10 points with your second pick, very strange. And then a late Kemba Walker with only 4 points on my team, very disappointing from him as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that Kemba was just always gonna take a back seat in that game a little bit, just because Kemba's not the most alpha male person, and when you have so many of those other, I don't know what you want to call them, superstars on the court, I always just thought Kemba was not going to be dominating.
Yeah, I think it's wild in the All-Star game. Like, you have these guys who are basically all-stars, but then you have like some of the best players that ever played in the game, and then you could immediately tell like the guys who are legit all-stars when they go up against these guys who are the best in the game. You're like, oh yeah, a team full of guys who are the best in the game versus like back when that's when they had to start doing this because the East was so bad. Like the West would just murder them. So it's just like, yeah, when the entire 5 best players in the league are going up against LeBron and scrubs, this is pretty bad.
Yeah, well, and I mean this year, right? LeBron's even in the West, so the East team. I mean, you see
would have been really bad.
Well, you saw it with some of the later. I mean, I think their starting 5 would have looked okay, but the reserves would have been left a little bit to be desired. I mean, they have Giannis and they have Kawhi. And there's a start, right?
Yeah, they got Embiid. Actually, right. Beal is playing great this year. Right. Shout out to Beal. By the way, like shout out to Beal, going to be like a really, really good pick next year. And I think that's something we're going to do here moving forward. It is playoff time. We are going to talk about playoffs. But we're going to probably take the amount of episodes we do per week down a little bit because there's no buying low or selling high. The trade deadline's pretty much over for everybody. So we're going to start looking into the future. We're going to start looking at rookies for next year, maybe first year and second year players that we think might break out. Maybe do some little year-end reviews, some of our more pleasant surprises, reviewing some of these guys for the rest of the year and into next year. Because it's never too early to look into next year, Tyler. It's never too early.
Well, and I think now is when you can maybe make some judgments, and we're going to see, every team, the All-Star break just happened, so people think, oh, the season's half over. Well, there's only like 25 games or less left for each team. So we're going to see some bubble ups that happen here. Some guys taking that step forward that we're going to really like going into next year. And we're going to probably talk about that plenty too. A guy that we've kind of seen doing it, right, is Kevin Knox. And his numbers don't look that good for the full season. But if you go back and look just since like the turn of the calendar to 2019, Kevin Knox is averaging like 16.5 points a game. If you look just in like from mid-January on, he's averaging almost 19 points a game. So
that's super impressive.
Right. So there's guys like that, right, who are going to bubble up, and we're going to see other ones in the second half. And the question will become, right, like who goes on that next team? Obviously, if like, they get Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving or maybe both those guys, Kevin Knox is not going to score that much. But if it's kind of Kevin Knox's team again, where should we be looking at Kevin Knox to draft him? Is he really worth it? And Knox is even a more interesting case in this sense that he doesn't do a lot else. So that's a little worrying too, right? Is like he maybe gets you like 5-6 rebounds a game, but he doesn't really steal or block the ball. He's going to shoot some threes, but the percentages aren't great. So Knox will be an interesting person to talk about. And there'll be a lot of those rookies and sophomores are really young players kind of doing something different.
Well, I mean, with Knox, you kind of hope like, all right, the blocks aren't there, and that's sometimes okay. Sometimes players take leaps, and the steals could go up, the assists could go up, but it is hard to see seeing him taking a huge leap like that. One guy I've been paying attention to, and there's been a very disappointing win streak here in Chicago for the Chicago Bulls. But Lauri Markkanen, who's playing very, very large minutes, is dropping like he had a 35-point game the other night. He's had a couple 30-point games here in the last month here. And I think Larry Markkinen is someone to keep an eye on, especially going into next year for those 9-cat roto leagues. If he can hover his blocks and steals around 1 apiece, if he can get that little bit more, and maybe get a few more assists, maybe get some teammates who are actually decent around him instead of just Zach LaVine, who pounds the damn ball into the ground and then takes a wild shot, which goes in more often than it should. With low turnovers, Larry Markkinen to me is becoming a kind of a sneaky sleeper looking into next year. Even though he was kind of on people's radar this year, we had him ranked, I think, fairly high, but in his 38 games this season, he is currently ranked per game in a 9-cat league 28th.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, too, what that team looks like, number one. And number two, we really never saw the front court pairing of Wendell Carter Jr. and Larry Markkinen.
No, neither did Fred Hoiberg.
So it'll be really interesting, though, to see how those two coexist and how those two can play off each other. And there's going to be a lot of those kind of new pairings we're going to be talking about, how those two fit together, and that'll be very interesting. And we won't really know the answer to that question until we actually get to next regular season. So you got to think, though, that they're not going to have all three of those guys scoring a ton. So where does Wendell Carter Jr. fit in there? Where do his what is he going to score, like 13, 14 points a game probably? Like it
depends on if he develops the 3-point shot and how well that comes along.
That's what I mean. Where are those points going to come from?
If he could turn into like if he could, so like there's like this prototype. His name is Brook Lopez. He's not a prototype. He's an old man, but like that's a really, really fun center to have. Is this stretch 5 center that can shoot from almost anywhere? I'm not saying Wendell Carter might ever get to Brook Lopez shooting from the logo type of shots, but a guy who could protect the rim and shoot threes, spread the floor out for someone who's dominant like Giannis. If the Bulls have someone named, I forget what his name is, Zion Williamson, who's also a freak of nature, maybe that's the perfect fit, Tyler. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a bunch of championships just coming out of the woodwork immediately. The Bulls are on their way.
You've lost me again. You've lost me. I think maybe your connection cut out, or maybe you just started huffing some paint. I'm not sure. Something crazy happened there.
Listen, after seeing this many losses, watching this Bulls team play, I have become delusional. So that is the only way to survive being a Bulls fan at this point. But let's, we're going to talk about stuff like this pretty much for the rest of the season. And if you want to get a little bit more insight, we're going to be doing some special things for our Patreon subscribers. Go check out patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. First off, you're helping support the show. Shout out to all you Patrons who are already supporting the show. You guys have really helped us this year and been a part of making this show better. So we really appreciate you. But a lot of that preseason stuff, a lot of that looking into the future, and people getting help with their keepers, stuff like that, all comes with the interactions you can have with us on patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. Go check that out. But Tyler, let's help people out with the playoffs and going into week 20 here. I guess before we do that, let's say poor showing by both of us. Even though I won the dunk competition by default, neither one of us picked the skills competition or the 3-point champion. We both really, really struggled with our picks for the Saturday stuff? Was that on Saturday?
Yeah, but come on, Joe Harris. I mean, come on. Who was picking Joe Harris?
Dude had one of the best percentages in the league.
Yeah, but so did Buddy Hield, and Steph Curry's probably the greatest 3-point shooter of all time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
These were the correct picks that we picked. Tatum got a little lucky shooting that half-court shot, and the dunk contest was one of the worst dunk contests of all time. So let's just pretend that day didn't happen, and let's go right to week 20.
So week 20 is one of those weeks where we didn't have a lot of games last week, right? Because they only played on 4 days. So and every team played twice. So there was 4 days, and every team played 2 games. Well, they made up for it in week 20. 20 teams play 4 times. The remaining 10 all have 3 games. So it's one of those weeks where, getting a 4-game guy is important, but with everybody playing 4 games, you're not really going to get that much of a schedule or games played advantage because there's so much volume out there.
Yes. This week, another very strange week. No teams, like you said, playing. I think you said no teams playing 2 games. Everybody's 3 or 4. Monday, Wednesday, the big days. Tuesday, almost only 3 teams are playing, and then the rest of the week's pretty, standard. So I think it's going to be a little bit harder to get a direct advantage, and this might be week 1 of your playoffs. I think a lot of leagues start either right now or next week, and so if this is your last week, anything goes. And if this is the playoffs for you, anything goes. You need to win no matter what. So that if you can get an advantage in anything by dropping a guy who you shouldn't be dropping just to get a win, it's worth the win, because basically, if this is the last week or the playoffs, winner goes home.
Yeah, and I probably should clue you into this, but there's a big playoff matchup on this podcast this week.
Uh-oh. Is that true? Someone needs to be looking at the fantasy listener leagues, I assume. Who's playing?
The number 1 seed in the Watching the Boxes Dynasty League is playing the number 4 seed in the beginning of our 2-week semifinal.
Yes.
And one of those people, the 4th seed, not looking very strong here.
One of the greatest matchups of all time, Watching the Boxes Tyler versus Watching the Boxes Mike C. You really talked a lot of shit going into this Dynasty League that I was not going to make the playoffs, but here I am. Here I am right here in the playoffs.
I mean,
and,
I beat you by
good for you.
I beat you by 24 games during the regular season, so I'm not super scared, Mike. I mean, a 24-game advantage seems like a lot.
It seems like a lot, but like I said, just a few minutes ago, anything goes in the playoffs, and I will be pulling out all the stops here to make sure that you do not go any further in this playoff run. You're going to be a one and done. You're going to be upset, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to.
Are you going to use your man Joakim Noah getting some consistent minutes on the Bulls to beat me?
Yo, Joakim Noah, who is on Memphis, is actually he was relevant there for a few days.
Hey, he had another good game tonight against the Lakers, man. I just watched him throw down a monster dunk.
Listen, a healthy Joakim Noah, I think the kids, we've been shit on the kids already, and I'm going to shit on them some more. People forget how good Joakim Noah was once 4th in MVP voting at one point. And a lot of injuries brought him, along with everybody who was a Tibbs player, brought him back down to earth. But at 34, against the Clippers, he had 22 and 11, and then against the Lakers just tonight, 14 and 12 with 4 assists. I mean,
do you think it was some sort of curse?
That's a pretty good streak.
Because as soon as Tibbs got fired, Derrick Rose was all of a sudden good again, and Joakim Noah and Luol Deng's playing some minutes now. Do you think it was just Tibbs had some crazy curse on him while he was coaching that they couldn't be good, and then it got lifted when he got fired?
No, they were very, very good when they were playing for the Bulls. It was more of the fact that they couldn't stay healthy, and that was the sad.
Well, that's my point.
Of all those guys.
That's what I mean. Did he curse them? Once they were good on the Bulls, did he curse them? Once he left, and then they just kept getting hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt?
Maybe.
You think he does some like voodoo magic or something? Like he's some sort of sorcerer?
I think he's just a psychopath, and I think they're just scared into injury, because they don't want to disappoint him. I think he's got like mind control kind of shit.
I might have to call him up and ask him about that. He doesn't look like he's doing much these days.
Well, I did see him doing some networks show and just eerily smiling into the camera like a fucking lunatic that he is, and it brings me joy to see that he is a lunatic at all times. Just an absolute.
It is not just on the basketball court.
Yeah, just a psychopath at all times of the day and night. Actually, let's throw it out there, Tyler. Let's say you're in a playoff matchup against someone who's really, really good in let's just say a listener dynasty league, and you're really, really worried about your rebounds. Is Joakim Noah worth streaming this week?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think at this point, I'm going to ride any hot hand. And if you read my Week 20 schedule primer this week, I went and actually outlined a few more guys who are hot hands. I don't do that a ton during the regular season because obviously with some of those rotation guys, it's just a blip and it's over real fast. But at this point, if I can get, like you mentioned it, 14 and 12, if I can get that for even a game, I'm pretty stoked in my playoff matchup. So I will definitely take some more shots on some players who are just on a hot streak during the playoffs than I would necessarily maybe in a regular season matchup, especially if I feel like I'm the underdog and I need to swing for the fences a little bit to catch up. I will definitely take some of those chances.
Yeah, I think, Joakim Noah is going to be good for a one-off, especially if he's going to be playing like 23, 25 minutes a game.
Well, and it's worth mentioning too, right, that Jaren Jackson Jr. is out.
Yeah.
They traded away Marc Gasol. So, there's minutes in that front court available.
Yeah, definitely. So there's Joakim Noah filling in that gap. But I think if I had a choice between Joakim Noah this week and someone in your list named Kenneth Faried, I think we'll go with Kenneth Faried, who I never thought I would say ever again. And you know what? I actually might have said this once before, maybe 2 years ago, that I don't think I had ever say, go out and take a flyer on Kenneth Faried this week. Go out and take a flyer on Kenneth Faried this week. I can't believe I'm saying it, but it's true.
Do you have those numbers pulled up for when he's just his games for the Rockets this year?
Let me really quickly. I don't think I have the Rockets games.
Yes, because they are absolutely insane. Like if you throw out his time with Brooklyn and you just look at when he played for Houston, now it's not a huge sample size. But those numbers are crazy, especially for somebody that's on the waiver wire. No guarantee that that's going to keep up, obviously. But, I mean, if you got the numbers, read them because they are impressive.
So, in the last 12 games, he's spent the last 15 games with Houston. So, I am actually missing a couple good games. So, I'm just going to go somewhere in between these two numbers. In the last 12 games, he's basically been averaging 16 points, 10 rebounds, and almost a block and over half a steal a game, shooting about 60%.
Yeah, and that's someone you can grab on the waiver wire. Like that's some pretty insane production, and
it's a top 70 players sitting out there on the waiver wire. And we said this going into the new year. We've been saying this for about a month or so, but there's going to be a lot of weird names coming out of the woodwork here in the last third of this season. And Kenneth Faried, certainly a shocking name to come out.
Yeah, and it always happens. It's going to happen again with somebody that we don't see coming, especially when the Chinese basketball season ends. Usually one of those guys comes over and like gets a 10-day contract and lights it up for 4 or 5 or 6 games. So yeah, you can always expect a little bit of anything this time of year.
Yeah, 100%. It is very strange. I'm also looking at your list here of waiver wire targets for Week 20. Very surprised about this person being on your list because I'm surprised they are only owned in 41% of leagues. PJ Tucker. Why isn't PJ Tucker owned in more leagues? That doesn't make any sense.
The hate is real on PJ Tucker. I mentioned a lot that he's a real good ad for threes. rebounds and steals. And the steals have been super crazy. So you can sort it on Yahoo for the last 30 days. And I was looking at that a little bit more than I normally do for the article this week. You want to guess how many steals per game PJ Tucker is averaging over the last 30 days according to Yahoo? So I have not sourced this number. Yahoo did for me.
Okay, according to Yahoo, steals PJ Tucker. I know he has been killing it because he has been killing in a roto league that I am in. He has been killing me. So I know he has been having some very good steal games. I'm gonna say he's at like 2.3.
You are very close. It was 2.4 per game.
Woo!
So yeah, and
that is crazy. That's like top 10.
I mention a man, Marcus Smart, very often, right? Just add him for the steals. He can win you that category every week because he gets 1.5 to 1.7 steals almost every week per game. Yeah, getting 2.4, that's just crazy talk. And then he's helping you in 2 other categories too. So it's not like he's a negative everywhere else. Yeah, I don't understand why no one wants PJ Tucker. I get that he never scores a ton. And some people get super fixated with like, oh, you're not scoring 10 points a game, you can't be good. That's far from the case.
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to ESPN for doing something right. And that's the player rater is usually pretty decent of a device to kind of get a feel of who's like the top player in certain statistics over the last like season, 30 days, etc. PJ Tucker is only being outstolen by one single player in the last 30 days, Tyler. And actually, it's very, very close. They both have the same rating. Technically, this one guy's ahead. Do you know who that guy is? He's probably leading the league in assists or steals, I mean.
Does he play for a Western Conference team?
He plays for the same team as PJ Tucker.
Oh, all right. I'll let you spoil it for everyone.
Of course, it was Kenneth Faried. No, James Harden and PJ Tucker are in the last 30 days averaging the same amount of steals, which is pretty insane. Followed by Mikal Bridges in the last 30 days. So, and then our boy Thaddeus Young.
Yeah,
so if you're in a roto league, these are people who should not. These are people who should be owned. Right now, they should be on your team.
And there's some guys who aren't. I mean, Bridges made the list too this week. He is not that owned. And obviously he didn't make the top 10 for the weekly because the Suns only play 3 times, but he made the list at the bottom there. Bridges, and we mentioned this a lot, after the draft, if he gets minutes, he's going to produce in blocks and steals. He's actually producing well in both categories for the season. Now his blocks have been down a little bit. Recently, he's only getting like 0.3 blocks a game. Yeah, Bridges is definitely a guy that if you need help in those 2 categories to win your weekly matchup, he's probably one of the better people to add.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this obviously goes for roto players, but not just roto players, but head-to-head players as well. There are these dudes who are owned in less than 50% of leagues who are not rostered, who could win you a week in one of these counting categories. Dwayne Dedman's out there, and he's been blocking up a storm over the last month. Obviously we talked about PJ Tucker. Terrence Ross hits a lot of threes. Patty Mills hits a lot of threes. So, go take a look, whether it be ESPN, Yahoo, Basketball Monster, #basketball.com. Go out and take a look and exploit the statistics and start exploiting them right away. Do a little research on your playoff matchup. Is the player you're going against, is he or she good at blocks or just mediocre at blocks? And exploit their weaknesses, because that one category that you exploited with your streamers could end up winning you your playoff matchup.
Yeah, I mean, it's super easy to do, right? You can just write down the guy's season stats, and then say, okay, he's playing 3 games this week, and just kind of go there. I mean, it's not perfect, right? And, every once in a while, someone unexpected has a crazy 40-point game, and you can't really plan for that. But at the same time, I think I win a lot of my bigger matchups by just looking at it on paper at the beginning and go, okay, I'm playing Mike. Mike's team, they're better than me in rebounds, but it's by so much I'm not really going to catch him. But he might be a little bit better in blocks than me, but I could make up because he's probably only going to be like 2-3 blocks ahead for the week. If I just stream some block guys in there, I can probably steal that category from him, and maybe that's the category. Maybe it was looking like it was going to be 4-4 or maybe 5-4 in his favor. If I steal that category, that's a win for me.
Exactly. Tyler, you've been doing your research. I would be worried if I was you this week because I don't think I'm a very good matchup for you. I think there's going to be an upset here in the Dynasty League.
I will say this about the Dynasty League: John Wall and his injury, and then second injury, and missing the season did not help me in that Dynasty League. But I think pretty much the whole season I have been one of the best teams. But the fact that 3 of my guys at the trade deadline went into a lesser role than what they were playing did not help my team. So I may not be the best team anymore, but I will not say that you are the best team, Mike. I think that title belongs to somebody else in the league.
Yeah, you can. You will be saying I'm the best team here in a few weeks when once again I win one of the listener leagues.
It's definitely not going to be the other one because I'm pretty sure you did not make the playoffs.
It is definitely not going to be our boring redraft listener league. A brutal finish for me, down in 13th place out of 16.
You didn't finish at the bottom. You didn't finish at the bottom, Mike. There for a while, I thought you might be dead last. No offense to you. I
had a bad draft. I had a bad strategy, and since this league is so large, there was just really no way to recover. I tried a few trades here and there, and I think too many of those you listeners knew what trades were coming because I announced them stupidly on this podcast.
And I will say this too. In a 16-team league like that, where the rosters are deep enough, there is nothing on that waiver wire. So if you have some injuries, like the winning team in that league is going to be the healthiest team in the playoffs, because if you got a couple injuries, you can go from being one of the best teams to being one of the absolute worst teams in that league in a split second.
Yeah, and I don't think the playoffs start till next week, I think.
They do, but I had a week where Steph Curry missed, and I think I lost that week 8-0. I'm not joking. And my team's pretty decent, but losing Steph Curry it eliminated me that week.
Yeah, shout out to all our listeners in both of those listener leagues, but especially Stranger Tom's, Mouth to Feed, Chicago Typhoons, Hardwood Players, which I don't feel like you need the U in it. So, feel free to change that. And the Supersonics and True. Let's go. I'll give a shout out to True School of Teaching as well. All with 80+ wins this year, along with Tyler. All probably going to be making the playoffs. Could be a fight for. I think we have 8 teams in this playoff, so could be.
The playoffs did start, Mike. You are losing your mind again.
Started. Yep. I thought we had one. I thought
it's me and the players in the 4-5 matchup in this.
I thought we had one more week.
Stranger Tom and Renegade Hoops is the 1-8. True School of Teaching is playing Mouse to Feed in the 2-7 battle, and the Supersonics and the Typhoons in the 3-6 matchup.
Oh, well, then shout out to Renegades of Hoop for making the playoffs. And sorry, Trusted Processes, you didn't make it. So shout out to all of our listeners and our all Patreon subscribers for making the playoffs this year. Great job, everybody. You certainly schooled me.
Is it strange that Mike finished 50 games back from first place? I just thought I'd throw that out there.
We don't need to talk about that.
50, a whole 50, Mike, a whole 5-0.
This team was very trash. I tried to build a team around Ben Simmons, and it did not work. I had a bad draft pick, and I think if you go look into the teams that are in the bottom half of this, they all kind of got bad draft picks in a very large league. Next year, we will not be playing with such large leagues. We will just do multiple leagues for all our Patreon subscribers. Patreon.com/watchingtheboxes if you want to get an early in on the listener leagues for next year. You can get first dibs if you subscribe anytime between now and the end of the season. You will get first dibs to the listener leagues. So thanks to all our patrons out there. Tyler, do you have anything else to say about week 20 here?
Week 20, not so much. We can say a quick word on the week 21 if that is something you're interested in.
Tell me all about it.
So week 20, we mentioned it, right? Lots of games in week 20. Week 21, if we're looking forward, is a week where we have the 2 games coming back. So the Cavs and the Clippers only have 2 games. There is the majority of teams playing 3 games, and we have exactly, I want to make sure I got this right, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 teams playing 4 games. Your Chicago Bulls are one of them. So next week's going to be one of those weeks, right, where you can definitely stream in some 4-game guys and get a nice advantage if you have a weekly locks league. And the streaming is rather prevalent because we have only one day with double-digit games. Wednesday has 10. Both Friday and Sunday have 9, so those get a little bit questionable. But we've got 4 solid days where we can do some streaming: Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at least. And I feel like next week is a great week to start your playoffs because there is definitely some advantages to be had from people paying attention.
Absolutely. This is the playoff times. Everybody should be paying attention. Obviously, I was not paying attention in the boring listener league because I didn't even know it was the playoffs, but I knew I wasn't in the playoffs either, and that's why I wasn't paying attention there. But shout out to all of our listeners who ended up in the playoffs. You will be getting, seriously, will be a prize for first place for all the listener leagues, including the Second Chance listener league as well. So do continue to strive for greatness because this is going to be a very coveted prize. It is not a visit from me or Tyler. We cannot afford to fly to wherever you are. We just can't. It's not going to happen. So if you thought that was going to be the prize, then give up. Especially if you're playing me in the Second Chance Listener League, feel free to give up. I would appreciate that because I think the guy I'm playing is currently tied with me. Yeah, for Fox's sake. Good name. Feel free to give up. I really appreciate that. Tyler, I think you're going to get last in the Second Chance Listener League. I'm a little worried about you, but I'm not worried about the Second Chance League because I think I'm going to win that one. It's going to be pretty close. There's a top, actually, like the top 7 guys are pretty close. So it's going to be a fun race in the Second Chance League. Shout out to all the Patreons who joined that league as well. And I think that is it for tonight. Everybody, if you like what you heard, please rate, review us online, or you can find us on Twitter. You can find me at Watch the Boxes. You can find Tyler at Tyler P. Watts. Hit us up with questions, comments, feedback for the show. Like I said, we are going to be switching the format here because there's no trade deadlines. There's a lot of playoffs going on. We're going to be talking playoffs. We're going to be talking about some of those weird pickups for your down the stretch runs, whether it be roto leagues or head to head. But we're also going to be looking at the year as a whole and things to look forward to in the future. So if there is something specific that you guys want to hear, hit us up at Watch the Boxes at Tyler P. Watts, and we will catch you next time. Thanks, everybody.